Hey everyone, Marsh from Consequence here. We're gonna go over Silken Court, second to last boss. We're not gonna even touch Mythic. It was memes in terms of difficulty. It's really hard. It's not even worth mentioning. So this fight is three phases. Regarding lust timers, I'm pretty sure the boss doesn't transition off of percent, and instead it's off of time. If that's the case on live, you want to lust on pull because you want phase 3 to be as short as possible. And that would be the end goal. If it ends up like being like a soft cap on P3 where you like phase at 40 or something like that, then you probably want to put Lust on P3. It's probably the hardest phase. But going into the fight, we're going to do one phase in the spreadsheet, and then we're going to do a VOD, and then we're going to go back and forth. It's not that hard of a boss on Heroic. So the first phase, there's going to be a few mechanics. And well, before I say that, each phase has like their one shot, do this right or die mechanic. And if you can do that, then you are good. So in phase one, you're going to have the charge mechanic, and that is going to determine if you are going to die or not. But one of the bosses does a charge. You need to get a web. You can see here range bait webs. So range will bait webs. You're not going to see it in the VOD because it's something we learned in Mythic. But range players will get the webs. It's going to cause this giant circle around you that's going to stretch. And you need to like basically make the web line have the charge go through it. And you need two of those to stop. So you need minimum 4 players, and you'll see it in the VOD. There's also a boss frontal, and there's other like weird mechanics like that, or simple mechanics like that. Just your classic WoW dodge stuff. Um, Not a boss. Like the boss target's probably, I think it's a ranged player probably, and then fires at them. There's also ads. Their speed got nerfed, so I think they're slower now than they were in this testing VOD. Very important that you stun and control them. Having very good Death Knight players can kind of just hard carry this. They can bring them onto the boss and like completely negate their whole mechanic. But you can also just stun and kill them, and if you're fixated and you're running away from one, cut it through the boss so someone can stun it there, and then it get cleaves really fast. So let's go in and take a look at VOD. This is not me. I don't record it really anymore, as I always say, but we're going to take a look. So this is P1. There's 2 bosses, and we try to keep them stacked as much as possible. I'm not going to talk about the tank mechanic here because the tanks have a lot of options with how they swap. Like I think in this testing, we had one tank the same boss the whole time, but it's probably better if they swap and they just have to work that out amongst themselves. So you can see here there's a mechanic. It's just like spread out with a circle, like this your classic WoW mechanics. Now the boss is going to jump here. He's going to do a frontal. Yep, a frontal and ads. So ideally you would want to stun these ads and then or kite them onto the boss. Again, good Death Knight players can group them up really quickly. But you can see the Death Knights are trying their best to bring them in. And they're just getting stunned and killed onto the boss. These are the webs. You can see how it fell on the range players in the mid. Probably the optimal strat is to like put them on the side of the room so they're all together and they're not just like them here. So you keep the space clean. But if this does happen, it's not the end of the world. The way they get a web, and I think there's a bug here. I think they get a triple. But one person touches the center, and then whoever else is in the closest to the center is going to get connected. But you're going to see here 3 people are going to get connected. I don't think that's intended, but this group has 2. So you need to set up your groups to be like, okay, in phase 1, we're going to have a hunter mage, and then probably a backup. Then like a druid and a evoker or something. And then those 3 guys would look to get the line just in case one breaks or someone dies. And you can see here they're making the line. So there's actually 3 groups, 1, 2, and there's 1 in the back. But they broke it as soon as they realized that it wasn't needed. And then you just run away at that circle to break. The boss is going to get a little damage out there, and you can pump damage into him. Very minor optimization though. And these are webs. Again, probably better to bait them, not here. But you're going to see again, they're trying to find their partners. You can see we have markers on their head. So like, this is just like a little strategy we've learned over time. But like, okay, blue marker and green marker, you guys are together so that you can just find each other. You can see this guy's red and this guy's yellow. So those are the people looking for groups. But again, you probably want 3 groups just as a backup, just in case something breaks or someone dies. And again, the boss is going to jump. Does a mechanic you are now. And we're just waiting for the charge. So optimally, I think these guys could have gotten their webs later by like 20 to 30 seconds. But if it doesn't, it's barely doing any damage to them. So it doesn't, who cares? Just don't break it. Just get it at some time. I think optimally you probably want to get it during the ads, but or right before the ads, but whatever. So there's a frontal here, dealing with the ads, dodging the frontal. This evoker is trying to bring it under the boss to just get cleaved. And then, yeah, I guess technically it would be after the ads you'd look to get the webs. And then you'd get the webs and you break. So that's optimal, but again, it's barely doing any damage to them. So as long as we think some spot healing, they're good. Hits 2, amp, and then we should be pushing into intermission here. Another frontal. And then see, they're trying to stack up the bosses as much as possible. But the boss is going to go center here, and it's going to do intermission. So intermission just basically does a bunch of cones around the room, and you just sidestep them, and you break a shield. So as you watch, they're going to put these cones out, and this is the first cone that's going to blow up. So what he's doing here is he's being like, okay, I know this is going to blow up first, so let me stand next to it. So whatever happens here, he's good. Blow up, sidestep. So that was technically a little harder. He could have stood here and made it easier, but it doesn't really matter because it's heroic and it's really slow. So he's just going to wait for this one. Yep, and he's going to go through. So you can kind of pre-plan your movement with that. Very, very easy. The boss is in Burrow, and then we're going to do P2. RVOD and P2 gets absolutely crazy with the Dispel, and I kind of just want to talk about the Dispel separately before we look at the VOD, because the VOD's like a really bad representation of what is you really want to do. We just kind of made it work. So the core mechanics of P2 is this, or the core mechanic of P2 is this Dispel. In P1 it was stopping, getting the webs and stopping it. In P2 it's the Dispel, and P3 is a combination of both. So in P2, in raid testing we got 2 Dispels, which is, again, if the boss is just on timers, you're going to get 2 sets. So the first set of Dispels, well, let's go into, no, let's just talk about it here. So the way the Dispels work is 3 are going to go out. And you need to dispel under the skinny boss. Once that debuff goes on the boss gets a stack. That's, I think, 12 seconds. When the boss does its cast, you'll see it in the VOD, but it does a cast. That cast will then get interrupted if you dispel on the boss when the cast is happening. So we'll see it in the video. Now, because the debuff's 3 seconds on the boss, the optimal strategy is to dispel 1, 2, and then 3 quickly on the boss when it's doing its cast. And then you're going to get the maximum value out of a damage amp. I think that the highest number is 150%. So it's probably 50, 100, 150. The damage amp isn't that long, so the way we do it in our testing, and probably how we're going to do it on live, is just play it safe, where we're just going to focus on getting the dispels on the boss. The debuff on the players, however, stacks up in damage. So it's going to go out, and it's going to start ramping up on these players extremely hard. If you dispel that player, it's going to jump to the nearest object, either being the boss or another player. So we're going to watch the video now, and we are going to see what we do for each set. However, one thing on a note is for the first dispel, we do the first one 5 seconds before the void step, and then the other two after the void step. And this is just a strategy we did. Every guild does it differently. You'd probably, if you looked at other VODs, you'd see guilds doing a mass dispel strat where they stand in a triangle and mass dispel and having the boss being closest to them. I think that strategy is optimal for heroic and good, but it's harder in practice when you could just be like, player X run under the boss. Okay, now player Y run under, now player Z run under. Instead of being like, okay guys, get in this triangle 5 seconds, in 5 seconds. So it's just something to consider. So going to the VOD, it's because there's no timers, it's going to get a little weird, like seeing what's which. It's the frontal. If you hit by that, you get impaled, and you have to be broken out, slightly buffed. And for the first phase. And again, they're trying to keep the bosses close together. He's going to do a step here, and this is the other mechanic in this phase. He's going to grip everyone in, and you just break the webs. In P3, you don't want to break them all, but here you just break them all. Add spawn, stun them, bring them under the boss like we're doing here, and then the dispels are going to come out. So he actually gets one, which is really nice. So you can see his screen kind of turn purple, and he has the debuff. Trying to see who else has it. A healer and a tank. So now what they need to do is they need to get dispelled under the tall boss. So what you're going to see in the VOD is not entirely optimal. Just note that 5 seconds before the void step off your timer is when you dispel the first one, and then you do the other two after the void step. That in theory gives you the most uptime, the 150%, and the first one's very easy to see coming. But here that monk went under the boss and got dispelled immediately. If you see you get hit by the front, you get spiked. And now what should have happened is 5 seconds ago the first dispel should have gone off, and then this key's going to go in and get dispelled, dispel, and dispel. So you're just doing that cast, and now the buff's disoriented and was taking more damage. But as you can see, it's not disoriented that long, so it's you don't really need to be super optimal. Add spawn again. The boss gripped everyone in. You just break them. You deal with the adds there. And then the second set of debuffs is out. So this set of debuffs, you're going to have a really long time. And what you're seeing now is we dispelled 2 of them pretty quickly on the tall boss. And then in the comms, we're just oh my god, we need to save the last dispel for the cast. Because if you don't put it on the boss during the cast, you're going to die. So the boss is going to grip everyone in here. We're passing this debuff around. Now the hunter has it. He got dispelled from the druid. And now the cast goes off. So I'm assuming optimally what you should do is either look to do an MD after this, or you do one dispel right here before this void step, 5 seconds before, like we did with the other one. Yep, right here you dispel, then you get gripped in, and there's a 12-second timer going. Everyone runs out, they dodge this, and then the second person should run in right now and get dispelled. Other players should stay away and not go run back into the boss, and then the third one would go right now. So you would be away from the tall boss here unless you're a dispeller. But you can see here it's a cluster. No one really knows what's happening. We're trying to get the dispel on the boss, and we're just trying to just get it done. So once you do that, those 2 dispels, you're going to go into the intermission. This intermission is very Kurog-like. We only saw this once, so you just see a ton of people get spiked. They get hit, they get spiked. It comes out really fast. This is deceivingly fast. So probably using coordinated movement speeds is really, really important here. At least early on when you're setting yourself up. Now it's not too bad. No one's gotten hit since the first time. See, he got stuck there. So again, using coordinated movement speeds is probably pretty good. And now we have to get these people out. and then we're in P3. So the P3 footage is really, really, really bad because we lusted on pool and we pushed the boss so quickly that we didn't get any of the mechanics. Um, but just to talk about it a little, actually, let's just watch the VOD. So he's going to do this Kurog style thing. This is from the intermission. Um, and then this is from the first intermission. If you hit by that, you're going to get snared like this. You're going to see here the boss is going to step away. And he's going to do a grip in. Note that there are dispels out right now. Yep, there's dispels out right now. Actually, no, I'm looking at the wrong debuff. So he's going to step away. And he's going to do this grip in. And then they're just going to kind of kill the boss. They're trying to stop damage, but it's this is the last pull of Heroic, so it's a little too late. But kind of talk about P3, we can hop over to the spreadsheet. So dispels are unknown. I kind of looked through logs and I didn't really see anything that was like really helpful. Then the boss will grip in players, and you need to, and it's going to do the charge just like P1. However, there's no web baiting. So when you get gripped in, you get webbed to someone. The way we're going to handle it is if you're a ranged player, you don't break unless you're with a melee. And with enough people in Heroic, there should be still like 6 pairs or 5 pairs or something. And then we call individual breaks and prio like mages and hunter groups or something like that. And then there's the dispels again. So you got to look for that cast, and you got to look for the dispels, and you got to dispel on the tall boss. And we can just go in the dungeon journal to see we didn't miss anything. But you can see here, dispels, charge, the spikes, dispel, casts, the knockback we saw, void step. Yeah, so it's just the 2 phases combined. But that is everything with Silken Court. It's actually not that bad. Again, just focus on not dying to the core mechanic in every single phase. That's what you need to do and what you need to focus on. Don't get overwhelmed by, I saw mythic testing and this looks crazy. It's not. Keep the boss together. Have a few people who know what they're doing. Keep it simple. Make sure the dispel people know what they're doing. And talk to them. If they don't know what they're doing, hey, go stand under the boss and get dispelled. Your healers should be knowing what they're doing, though, at minimum. But you can tell DPS where they go stand, or tanks, or whatever. That's the easy part. So, that's everything with the boss. It's actually not that bad. I'm going to have, like, a video on the last boss, and it's, like, mechanics and how we think they're going to work. But there's no testing VODs, so that's going to come out next, and it's just going to be, like, a discussion. That's everything from me. Good luck on the boss, and I'm out. Peace.